The following presentation explains a huge problem concerning an out-of-control federal government welfare program called child support. This presentation will provide a simple solution to that problem. Child support has grown like a cancer in every state across the United States, now doing the opposite of its intended purpose. It was designed to reduce the cost of welfare paid by the government to single moms when the fathers were absent and not involved, but is now increasing costs dramatically. It also claims to help children, but in reality, the federal and state child support bureaucracies have become harmful to children, primarily using this program to undermine the father-child relationship. The child support problem is so out of control, it is begging for a solution, and I have a great solution. This video describes 1. The history and evolution of the federal child support program, 2. Why it is referred to as Title 4D, 3. How this program impacts state child support laws and policies, 4. The congressional purpose of the 4D program, explaining why child support is not for children and never was intended for children. 5. How the program has expanded far beyond congressional intent. 4D services were never meant for involved fathers who willingly provide the basic needs for their children. 6. The problems that arise with this 4D child support program on both a federal and state level. It is the only welfare program with no income eligibility standards. Because of this, anyone and everyone who applies is granted the whole range of collection services. This has become incredibly harmful to children and an enormous waste and abuse of taxpayer money. 7. To conclude, I explain an easy solution as a first step by creating income eligibility standards for government child support services where none exist today. While this presentation was given in 2005, it is still completely relevant today. I encourage you to watch the entire 1-hour presentation to educate yourself about the basics of this program. This is information the Child Support Agency will never tell you, but you need to know if you want to be part of any meaningful reform.
Today's topic is Title 4D Welfare Services. I'm going to answer 2 questions in the next hour and a half. And those questions are, first of all, does the federal government allow the state to initiate reform and clarify eligibility standards for Title 4D welfare services? The second question, will state legislators be assured the state won't lose the entire federal funding for 4A and 4D as the state DHS alleges? As we go through those 2 questions, the first question, I will review the outline listed here. We'll review family law versus welfare law, public rights versus private rights, the history and purpose of 4D as it is in the Social Security Act, the limitations of Title IV, Title 4D amendments, the unauthorized expansion of the 4D program, outcomes that produces regarding process and fiscal outcomes, and then we'll talk about the constitutional violations created as a result of that overreach. The second question I'll review and outline that will answer and describe for you the CPR solution, what the DHS claims, what the misrepresentative federal penalties are, what they look like, the positive impact that change and reform would have on government budgets, and also hopefully we'll have some time to discuss some fiscally responsible decisions that we can work with together. I want to begin with a disclaimer and make sure that you know that I am not an attorney and nothing I say today should be in any way, shape, or form considered legal advice. Though we have run through all of our information by our advisory board attorneys, several people who were able to work with and give us that legal input. I have also received information from 3 judges, 2 retired district court judges in Minnesota, 1 retired appeals court judge in Minnesota that believes that our information is accurate. And we continue to expand that base of interested judges and lawyers, although I found that retired judges are more willing to talk to us. The first question, does the federal government allow the state to initiate reform and clarify eligibility standards for 4D welfare services? The first subject in that area is family law versus welfare law. At the legislature, you've heard a smorgasbord of family law issues. There's child support legislation that Senator Neville has done an incredible job working with, which mostly focuses on the guidelines, whether it's a net income, income shares, cost shares, whatever it is. Then there's been legislation on joint physical custody. There's been legislation repeatedly year after move-aways, and really many other family law related issues. Things as like OFPs, parenting plans, imputed income, a host of different topics that affect family law or that are part of family law. And last but not least on this list, of course, is Title 4D welfare reform. And I put this slide up here on purpose to show you that Title 4D welfare reform is different. It's something separate from all of these other issues, so it does not need to be in conflict or worrisome with any of the other legislation that we do also get involved.
I'm going to stop it right there because as you can see, this was 2019 and none of this has changed whatsoever. So I'm going to pull up actual Social Security Act Title 4D and 4E so we can look exactly at what's going on now. Come on, goddammit. Alright, so this doesn't get to the bottom. This is the Social Security laws. This is the Social Security website. And this is all about block grants. This is, and the language is confusing for people. You know, when you read it, you're like, oh, so that's grant money for the payment of child support. No. The grants are given to the family law court for destroying your family. Okay? You gotta read all this stuff because the most important part is finding out what the prohibitions are. If they provide you any kind of a domestic violence assistance, you know, treatment or drug treatment or marriage counseling or any of that stuff, these people don't get the grant money. That's why I repeat, you're not going to get any of that treatment from the state. That's why, and all these laws are set up so they can throw the parent in jail. They're not providing any of this assistance. You got to read all this stuff because these provisions are concerning the grant money, which is federal incentivization for the family law court to destroy the family. Period. Like I said, if they're offering any of this assistance to a family who is not qualified, which the judges in the family law court don't get their reward from the federal government. That's a fact, Jack.
There's a federal law called Title 4D. It was passed in the late 1970s. This is the cause of the divorce explosion in the 1980s and the creation of, there were no family courts in the early 1980s. They didn't exist. They were created specifically because of Title 4D. Title 4D provides for matching funds for the collection of child support. So I don't know about Virginia, but I know about Texas. In Texas, it's $500 million. It's $480 to $520 million per year. The more child support that's issued, the more money the state gets in reimbursements. The more it collects, the more it gets in the entire Texas Attorney General's office is funded by the child support collection matching funds from Title 4D. Texas actually has a law in the Texas Government Code which requires all judges to rule in cases in such a way to maximize Title 4D reimbursements.
Wow.
Before anything is heard in case. This explains a lot of peculiar things in family court. Family court's known for giving custody to the dysfunctional parent, and they just do it consistently. They do it all the time. I watched a case ahead of mine one time, and they gave 2 children back to a heroin addict mother who had successfully passed a drug test after 15 days for the first time.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
What was the alternative?
Why would they do that? That makes no sense, right? Everybody goes, nobody in their right mind would do things like, why do they do it? Here's why they do it. The state knows full well it will never collect child support from a heroin addict.
Oh.
And all that matching money, they don't get it.
Got it.
They know that the responsible parent will bankrupt themselves to protect their child and to take care of their child, and they'll get all the matching money for that. So the decision in family court doesn't come down to, are you a fit and willing parent? If that were the case, then in 99% of the cases, you would have both parents getting 50-50 custody because both parents are fit and willing, right? Most abuse is actually much rarer than we think, right?
Yeah.
So abuse and neglect, those are 2 ends of the spectrum, right? So what they do is they say, which person here will give me the maximum Title IV reimbursement for the state?
Wow.
And that's the person who loses custody so that they pay child support. That's the real calculation that's going on. You mentioned CPS, and if you're looking at laws around this, you need to know about Title IV-E. Title IV-E gives reimbursements for taking children.
There are massive federal programs that were instituted in the late 1970s that pay states trillions of dollars to tear families apart. Like in Texas, we get 66 cents on the dollar put into the Texas Treasury for every dollar of child support that's paid. So the state is now highly incentivized to issue the maximum amount of child support. That's why almost all divorces got 50-50 prior to the 1980s. And there was this skyrocketing of divorces where one parent loses custody. And that was to maximize Title IV-D reimbursements to the states. In Texas, it's $500 million to the Texas budget.
If the state is profiting off of child support?
Correct. And in most states, the Judicial Retirement Fund is funded from this money.
Government does not want you to know this.
If you get the woman out of the house and working, then you're going to increase the tax because girls are making more money now, and so they're taxed more, so the governments are making more money, and then you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone because now you're separating the man and the wife, so the man has less authority over the wife, and they're more separated, they're not as bonded, they're not as close together, and then you also send off your kids to school. So the family is separate, and when the family is independent, the family is not strong. They're easier to control, they're easier to manipulate, and the government makes more money off of it. So the idea of me working really hard, making a bunch of money, keeping my wife at home, keeping us close, and then she's with the kids, she's close to the kids, and she's programming the kids, the government does not like that because the government does not get to push what they want to my kids.
For sure.
They make less money because my wife doesn't work, and we're just stronger and more resilient towards them. They don't like that. So that's what I've heard.